In this video, I'll be reviewing the Park TW-5 torque wrench. This is a very essential tool for the home mechanic. With bike parts getting more and more expensive and more carbon coming out, you don't want to risk over tightening or under tightening a component. This wrench goes from 3 to 15 Newton meters. Park also makes the TW-6 that goes from 12 to 60 Newton meters. But this is the one that I would recommend starting with because most of the torque specs on a bike are going to be within this range. Now this is not a cheap tool. They run around $100 to $115, so it's a pretty good investment, but if you're going to save cracking a carbon component, it's well worth it. So let's get started. The wrench comes in a pretty heavy-duty plastic storage case, which I keep it in all the time. So what you get with this is just the wrench, and you get an adapter. So this is a 1/4 inch drive, and it also comes with an adapter for a 3/8 inch drive. Now you will obviously need to purchase separately some sockets. Since most work on bicycles is hex keys or Allen wrenches, this is what you're going to need, and you're going to need metric because 95% of bikes use metric Allen wrenches for the mechanic work. So I had this 3/8 inch drive already on hand. This is one made by Craftsman. Not very expensive. This goes from 4 up to 10 millimeters, skipping the 9. The 9's not used very much. But if you're going to purchase this and then go out and purchase some sockets, I would actually recommend getting 1/4 inch drive. So this socket is a 3/8 inch drive, but I would recommend 1/4 so you don't have to use this adapter. But what I have to do when I use this is I have to put on the adapter and then put this on. So it's just one less step if you can buy a socket set that's a 1/4 inch drive, because when I'm done with this, I like to put it back in the case, and sometimes it's very hard to get the socket out of the adapter, and sometimes I actually, if I have a little bit of grease on my hands, it's very hard to do. So it's just one less step if you get the 1/4 inch drive. So the way this works is you set your torque specs with the dial on the bottom. So you pull this out a little bit, and then you would just turn it to set your torque specs, and then you look in the window. So let's say we want to go to 5 Newton meters. I would turn the dial till the red line is on 5. And this goes in 0.4 Newton meter increments. So I put it right on the 0, and I'm on 5. If I wanted to go 5.4, I would just go to the 0.4, 5.8, and obviously the 1.2 setting on the dial would get me up to 6.2 Newton meters. Now it does have a nice conversion chart on the back if you're going for inch pounds. Most of the specs that you see for bicycles are Newton meters, but if you got a torque spec in inch pounds, you could do the conversion. So for instance, if something was 60 inch pounds, you could look on the scale and know that it's roughly about 6.8 Newton meters. This is a ratcheting socket, so it makes working on things very easily. And like most socket sets, you can set the direction here. So over to the right is for tightening. So the way this would work is I would tighten, I could ratchet and tighten again. Of course, if you wanted to loosen, flip it back over there, loosen, and you can ratchet it. So a quick demonstration of how this would work on a bicycle. I've set it to 5 Newton meters, and this torque wrench, when you hit your torque spec, you'll feel it break or give a little bit. So I'm tightening it, and once I get to my torque spec, it bends, and you can feel a little click and a little bend when you hit that torque spec, and that's when you know it's time to stop tightening. This style of torque wrench that breaks, so to speak, when you hit your proper torque spec is the one that I would highly recommend over this style. This is the kind that I started using, and this is one that goes to a much higher range. So this goes from 0 up to 70 Newton meters. But these are very hard to use because, one, you have to make sure you kind of keep the handle balanced here while you're tightening it. But the main reason is it's hard to see this dial. It's hard to really look, and if you're tightening something that's kind of at a weird angle, to get your head around and look at this dial can be difficult to do, and it's hard to get a good reading. And just to give you a quick story, I had a stem that was coming loose, actually the headset, and it was on a road bike, and I just couldn't get it to get to the to where it would stay. And so I wanted to make sure I was hitting the right torque spec, and I was using a wrench like this trying to get it on there, and I just felt like it wasn't quite hitting the torque spec, and I ended up actually cracking the steerer tube of the road bike, which was not fun. And so that's why I really recommend this style. And of course, that example shows how important it is to hit the exact torque spec on something, especially like a stem where there's a carbon steerer tube underneath. The Park TW-5, like any park tool you buy, is very well made. It's fairly heavy. You can tell it's not cheaply made. And I've been using this thing for 2 to 3 years, probably on a weekly basis, and it works just as good as when I first pulled it out of the box. So it's very durable. It's a good investment, and it's one that I can really highly recommend for your home mechanic workshop. So that's going to wrap it up for this review. As always, please give it a thumbs up if this was helpful for you, and leave comments or questions below. Thanks for watching.